Today's topic might be a little bit down a rabbit hole, but my guest has made a commitment together with me that if we get in too deep, we will try and dig each other out.
Yes. Safety first.
Safety first, safety first. Depending on where you sit on the spectrum, you may think this is an important conversation or this is an irrelevant one. But the title of today is how do we measure or how do we value what people think is non-essential, right? Not all of us agree what is considered essential work. And, and that affects a lot of things. It affects sustainability. It affects career options. And with me is, I don't even know how to describe my guest. And I will follow what dear Azrin has put together for me, right? So, Su-Lin, you are co-founder and executive director of ArtsWok, but you are so much more than that even, right? You are a multi-hyphenate. You're trained in theatre, you're trained in psychology, you're a counsellor, you were a former full-time pastor, you were a creative producer, and you are a community builder as well, right? You stretch across the spectrum of the art sector and community building sector. And it would be so hard for me to look at that and think that all sounds quite non-essential, right? But we're going to get there. What drew you to the arts, a sector that in the pandemic was most famously dubbed as non-essential in Singapore? Maybe we'll start off there.
So firstly, thank you so much, Xiao, for the invite. Yeah, it's interesting hearing those, I guess, descriptions of myself being read out. I think for me, it's also integrated that I forget all these, labels or titles, and it's just, showing up every day, wanting to do work that is meaningful and purposeful, right? And for me, that is through the arts, but so much more than the arts, it's through connecting with people, be it through, programs that we do. And yes, it is an arts intervention, but also counseling and so many other ways. Actually having a good conversation as well can be life-changing for some, right? So, but what drew me to the arts, really, it was growing up. My parents and my mom would bring me to all these arts performances. And so from a young age, I was exposed to it. It's a different way of communicating, of understanding the world, of meaning making, and hearing alternative stories and narratives that, reading books is wonderful and great, but then seeing it sort of come alive and animated, right? So it really started from there. And then I went on to do theatres and then psychology. So those were my double majors. And because, ultimately I am interested in the larger questions in life. So what is the meaning of life? And I remember asking this from a very young age of people that I knew, of complete strangers, and I would just pop this question, hey, so what do you think is the meaning of life? Some, really did respond, and some just like, okay, I don't know, I don't want to talk about this. But I guess that curiosity, and maybe that was encouraged through sort of all that exposure from a young age. And then, my disciplines, studying, going deeper into theatre, which is very much about people and life and holding that mirror up to society, the critical thinking, reflection. Then, of course, the sense-making and the literal creation of potential alternative narratives. So how do we imagine the world as otherwise? Okay. So then, going on to work in theatre after I graduated. So my first job was at Theatre Works, now known as T-Works, with King Sen. And then I went on to work at the Necessary Stage. And in fact, that's where we met. There's a backstory there. So on and so forth. And Theatre Works and Necessary Stage, a lot of the work is socially engaged. So again, really honing my muscle and my skills, looking at how do we talk about what's important to us as society, right? So socially engaged art or community engaged art, and not just the artist's voice, but where is the community's voice in this? And then how do we imagine otherwise? How do we create social change? How do we, or even educate or heal? And there's so many different types of vocabulary that can come in here. And that's the beauty of the arts and culture. It's not just confined to one kind of field, but it's really the intersection and the interdisciplinarity of it that is its power. And after working, I would say about my first 6-7 years in theatre. But after that, I went on to do my master's in counselling. I did theological studies. And then I co-founded ArtsWok, and this was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And really that was Hui and my response to how do we make a difference in society? How do we bring our different disciplines together? I mean, I had the arts, I had the community building, the spirituality. She had, also the community building, comm development. She's film trained. She went to do development work as well.
Yeah.
So how do we bring all this together and make sense of how do we work with communities and, bring about the kind of changes that all of us want to see in society, and they're all different. What we want to see is different, and that's the beauty of it, that diversity. And how do we sense make together? How do we create and actually create real changes and shifts lah? Yeah, and there's no roadmap. We call ourselves intermediaries, and even our first 10 years was also kind of, okay, what does that mean really? Beyond, a description on paper, but in practice, what does it mean to be an intermediary at the intersection of arts and other sectors? So we collaborate a lot with, social services or health or heritage or and of course, all these fields are also quite arbitrary at the end of the day. I mean, there are ways to allocate resources, but when on the ground and you're doing the work, all the intersections are there.
Yeah.
So, so that was co-founding ArtsWok, and then the work has continued from there.
Maybe this is a good place to pause for a while for the listener who may not be familiar with the arts. So maybe help this listener here. What does the arts mean to you? Like, what is the arts? Like, if you could bring it down to a sentence or two for a beginner.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah. What is the arts?
Okay.
Or art with a big capital A.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's one way of talking about it. Art with a capital A, and that's your, your theatre performances, your gallery exhibitions, your musical concerts, and maybe that's what people immediately think of or see when they think of arts.
Yeah.
And you go to a particular venue and you consume or you partake, you experience, and it can be quite passive.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for it and that kind of thing. But it's so much more than that. Yeah. And actually, the power of the arts is not just when you are experiencing it or consuming it, but also the processes behind making art are very powerful. And at ArtsWok, that's what we do. We actually engage these processes, and invite community in to experience them. Yeah. And these processes are basically things that could happen in a rehearsal room, for example. So we are looking at scripts. We are looking at the issues in the script. We are taking on roles or characters and making sense of the world that is presented in the script, which is largely about, a lot of plays are a reflection of what happens in society, but maybe we are imagining what it could be otherwise, or we are unpacking a very difficult, complex issue like poverty, for example, and bringing in multiple perspectives. Yeah. But when communities invited into that space, and sometimes they are invited to perform. So an example would be the community theatre, part of Beyond Social Services, and they actually work with young people who create plays of their own, and then their stories get heard. Another program we have is Both Sides Now, looking at living well and leaving well, and that's where we have end-of-life conversations. And again, through the arts, we're unpacking, stories together, and personal stories, difficult ones, emotionally heavy ones, making sense of them, and then expressing them in a way that makes sense for us, that is safe, that is powerful. Our narratives get heard by others. And we inspire, and when I say we, I mean here the larger community inspires others to take action or, to share their own stories. So, the arts, you see the sort of end product, if I can use that term, but actually there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that we are inviting people to be a part of, and that is powerful too. And so maybe in one or two sentences, the arts is a language, a way of communication for people to express ourselves in very profound ways where words can fail, because it taps on the sensory. It's not just cognitive, right? It taps on other forms of wisdom that are not immediately available to us. Yeah. the intuitive, the otherworldly, the spiritual, and it gives us a language and forms in which to express ourselves. And typically these forms could be theatre, music, visual art, film, so many forms. And in our area of work, community engaged arts, we emphasize a lot on the relational and the dialogic, and there's a certain aesthetic behind that. And here aesthetic simply means a way of engaging. It's the senses that are engaged, and I guess put forth into a certain kind of meaning that elicits a response from someone. And so in these sorts of relational dialogic forms, when we work with communities, it goes beyond your music, visual art, theatre, film. Actually, cooking, gardening, everyday practices, everyday rituals, when done with a certain intention, when done with a certain frame, like maybe there's a question that's being asked, and we are unpacking this together, and then we do it through talking and dialogue, but we're also practicing the actual making, the actual creativity that goes into experimenting with something and into expression. So it could be a delicious dish that is a collaboration between different community members, or around a legacy recipe we want to leave behind for our loved ones, that they will remember us every time they cook this, and maybe we even created the recipe together, or a garden, or it could be anything, right? So it doesn't have to be intimidating, because I know the other thing is sometimes people think, well, the art's so intimidating. Not everyone can act, play a musical instrument, do visual art. And that's practice at a professional level. But there's so many everyday practices, and there's such a range of way of practicing through the arts that I find tremendously exciting and rewarding. And that's when we can do the art together. We can experience art together with community, not just with those who are trained. And it's not just those who are trained or professionals presenting it to the public. But the engaging together. And I hope we didn't go down the rabbit hole yet.
Well,
but I was
it's a slight rabbit hole, but I was following you down that rabbit hole because I'm learning so much from it.
Okay.
Because I'm not an arts practitioner per se, right? But maybe to connect the dot back to how Su-Lin and I met. So I'm 48 this year. How old are you?
51.
51, right?
Yeah.
So we are like Gen Xers kind of thing. And we both met when we were at the beginning of working life. So I must have been early 20s. So Su-Lin, you're probably early 20s as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my first job was a freelance graphic designer. And one of my first clients was the Necessary Stage where Su-Lin was working. So that's actually how we met.
Yeah.
I've never seen myself as an artist. I'm interested in the arts. I like going for a theatre performance, and I'm a broke designer, so I was very happy to get all these free tickets from the Necessary Stage because of the work that I was doing with them. So I got exposed to forum theatre. But anyway.
But hang on, do you call yourself a designer?
Yeah, see, so that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
I do call myself a designer from a professional standpoint today. It's not the first reach of an identity.
Okay.
But I would say I design a program. I would design a conversational flow. So I would use that as a way to describe what I am doing, what I'm making. But I don't wear it as an identity. I find that the most art sounding identity that I take on for myself is creative. I'll call myself a creative.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I picked out is how easy it is for people to assume that art is not for me, or I cannot do art or make art. There's an intimidation about it. And it makes me think of how the arts is about going deep. It's about going deep into trying to make sense of ourselves, trying to make sense of this world, and then trying to make a form, right? trying to
Yes.
express it in form,
Yes.
right?
So that others can
So that others can see and hear
touch,
what we are making sense of.
exactly, and then
Yeah.
respond as well. So it doesn't
Yes.
just stop there.
Yeah. So it's that making sense of myself and the world, and then trying to make a form so that you understand how profound this sense making I'm having is, right? And I can see how for a lot of people, they think of it in Singlish as, wow, so chim. So chim for what? You know, like why must we go so deep? Why must we think so much? You know, why not just keep things at the surface, keep it simple? And there's a truth to that, right? That we can't function fully in the world if every day we're going at it that deep. So that there is a need for keeping things on the surface and keeping things simpler. But at the same time, there is a real need for all of us to go deep. And I'm very big in going deep, which is why I'm like happily following you down the rabbit hole, and why Azrin, our line producer, is like, oh no, the two of you please don't trigger each other into rabbit holing.
Okay.
No, but I can see the need to really try and help people understand like what you think as intimidating and scary and too chim, too profound, too deep for you might be a sign that maybe you should try going in a little deeper than you normally do. So that's one. And it connects to my second thing that I picked out from you, which is I can see why your hyphenations make sense. That you are in the arts and then you go into counseling and psychology and spirituality and community building, because all of these things are about going deep. Counseling, psychology, spirituality, community building would require someone to, I need to make sense of what's going on inside me. I need to make sense of what's going on around me.
Yes.
And then I need to make a form that helps people to see something that is so hard to see, so invisible.
Yes.
And to treat it as profound and not treat it as, so normal, you know? And I think we are shallower society if we don't go there. Yeah. So those are the things that I picked out, and I'm very grateful for that rabbit hole you went down.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm also aware that there is a listener who's listening and thinking, I can't go down that rabbit hole. I got bored after a minute, or I got lost after 30 seconds. And I think that's the challenge that we're facing in this world, that has to do with the arts and also not have to do with the arts.
Yeah.
You know? Because I could very well be asking you to talk about psychology or spirituality. And my bet is you would go down the same, like, I need to tell you 2 paragraphs, which are really profound and deep, but someone listening would get lost. Yeah. And my invitation to the person who's getting lost is that it's okay to think, I'm getting lost.
Yes.
And to get curious about, why am I getting lost? And am I interested in going down the rabbit hole or not? You know? So
yes,
that's kind of where I went down my own rabbit hole.
For that.
Yeah.
A lot to reflect on. And I, along the way, wanted to interrupt you so many times because I might lose my train of thought. So feel free to guide me back. I want to say that I got goosebumps when I heard you reflect and describe actually who I am and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. It's a gift. I don't hear it very often. And to, I guess, to be able to be seen in that complexity, maybe not everyone gets it. And I'm known as an overachiever. And I know it can annoy a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think you're really sensitive, and I think you got it. And because of the work you do as well, I think you see a wide diversity of practice and what people do, and that was really helpful to hear you kind of reflect back to me. So I just wanted to say thank you first. And actually, it's not about you use the word normal, and it's okay for it to come across as normal. In fact, I would love for it to come across as normal.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's complex and shame and all of that, but really, I believe all of us have that potential and capacity. And the challenge for me actually is finding that simplicity and the normality in the complexity.
Yes.
And if I can't do that, I don't think I would have fully realized what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as human beings, firstly, we are already that complex and very layered.
Yes.
But sometimes we don't give ourselves the permission, or maybe the conditions aren't right, where we're encouraged to express all these complex thoughts and feelings that we have, all our curiosities.
Yeah.
I mean, within the arts, yes, there are some performances or forms, abstract art, or, certain pieces of music, or even certain ways of doing community engaged arts that maybe a bit more challenging. The issues are difficult. We're talking about death and dying, or we're talking about race, or we're talking about LGBTQ. I mean, these are difficult things.
Yeah.
But the processes and the way they're facilitated are really important in enabling them to be chunked down.
Yeah.
And for anyone and everyone to be able to enter into a particular kind of process where we are digging into our own wisdoms and our own knowledge and our own experiences and emotions. We all have them.
Yeah.
And then how do we then share and talk about them?
Yeah.
And so the conditions in which this sharing happens, is it a safe space? Are good questions being asked, where now I can, kind of like the questions you're asking me that you're eliciting, right? And we all have these things that we want to share. And then after being shared, what do we do with all these stories and wisdoms and thoughts and emotions? And that's where the artist comes in to help shape. Yeah. Right. And guide and form. And then we're creating something together. And I would say at the end of the day, the form is really not that important. It's whether or not we connect with someone else. Yes. So the arts is a vehicle to connect. Yeah. Actually. And that form contains stories. And behind stories are personal narratives, our experiences, our emotions. And good stories, there can be bad art. Yes. So, and good art enables us to connect with someone else, with a community, with society, right? Yeah. And then after that connection, the arts also then provides a space where, okay, so what do you want to do about this problem or this issue, about how you're feeling? Yeah. Right. And then we do the work and the practice together. Yeah. I would say good art shouldn't make you feel like, wow, this is so cheap and challenging. I really catch no ball. And maybe then either it's not very good art, or maybe you're not the target audience for that particular kind of art. Yes. Because I also don't want to say all art is the same. That there are different types of art for different purposes, for different types of audiences. I mean, if we look at everyday practice, I mean, there's so many people making videos now, TikTok videos, or, so many people creating content or expressing something. And not all of it is art, but actually it's the same kind of approach. It is a way that we are trying to get a message across. We're trying to express something. We're trying to make sense of the world we're in. Yes. We're trying to engage audiences to share or, agree with us, disagree with us. How do we change something for the better? Yeah. We're just engaging in different types of forms. And artists with a capital A, those who are professionally trained, have more skills and tools to be able to do it, and therefore can do it better. I would say alongside that is the critical thinking. A lot of the practice is about unpacking the world and asking questions of the world. So when artists work, and I've seen that over the decades, artists dare to ask questions lah. I think artists are trained to be courageous and quite fearless. Not all, but I would say part of the practice is the ability and courage to ask very difficult questions of the world we exist in. Not to make assumptions, not to solve something, but to stay in that space of discomfort and to really ask those difficult questions. What's really going on here? To then talk to community members and listen to their stories without giving a solution or here's how I can help you. And then how do we make sense of what's going on? How do we then share with others about what is going on in this community or this society? And that's why also sometimes artists are seen as intimidating or troublemakers or difficult or, trying to stir up trouble, because that is the role of the arts too, to be able to reflect society. So actually, it's about uncovering truths and being courageous to share those truths with others, especially those that people don't necessarily want to see or hear. But unfortunately, many a time, we are then misunderstood as, stirring up trouble and that kind of thing. Okay, but let's not go down that rabbit hole maybe yet. Yeah.
Maybe let me reflect back what I'm picking up from you. I think the first thing that triggers for me is your reference to, there's a lot of people out there who are making forms, right? Like maybe they are making food or making videos, and some are artistic and some are not, right? And what's the difference? So the thing that I picked out is sometimes when I look at a video that someone produces or a dish that they cook, I make a judgment on, is this cynical? And by cynical, it means like, I know you're making that video not because you're expressing a truth or a depth about yourself or the world. You are making it to, I don't know, make money or get attention, something that's very surface, and I label it as it's cynical, and that makes me not see it as an artistic piece of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Versus like it could be someone putting out a video. The form is maybe a bit raw. It's not so polished, not artistic in the big capital A sense, but there was a truthfulness to it.
Yes.
There was a depth of expression, whether that person knew it or not. And to me, that had artistic value.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm picking out, right? A cynical approach to the forms that we're putting out there.
Yes.
And a more artistic one.
Yes.
Because even when I look at my field of work, let's say it's training or coaching, you can do it in a cynical, let's get it done, let's just rinse and repeat.
The technical part of it.
It's very technical.
Yeah.
It could even look really good on the outside.
Yes.
But there is like skillful coaches and trainers, and then there is those who bring it to a level of art.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there is depth, there is truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A different vocabulary came to mind as you were talking, and if I could talk about arts and artists, there is a soulfulness to the work that I think distinguishes it from just creating content or just expressing and whatever. But and that's what arts training is for, right? I wish more people could experience an education in the arts apart from all the other subjects.
Yeah.
Because at the core of it is a type of critical thinking that is absolutely crucial at how we ask questions of the world and our role in it.
Yeah.
How do we not have easy answers and assumptions? How do we stay in that discomfort? How can we experiment? And how can we, that sense-making part, right?
Yes.
And part of that learning and critical thinking is looking then at how others have done it, right? So history, and then looking at culture, and not just in our local context, but internationally.
Yeah.
And then how are different forms of expression, right? So be it the traditional art forms or learning skills at a very high level of how do we then literally shape our world, right? With all this content, all these stories and all these viewpoints, how do we present it back to people in a way that makes sense for them?
Yeah.
And because we see and we hear and we touch, it's through our senses.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not just cerebral, it's emotional, it's spiritual. So the arts marries all these things.
Yes.
So essentially it's respecting the human being, this existential being, and in all our complexity.
Yeah.
And that's what we go to art school for, to really learn all these different skills and languages, and not just in this moment in time, but looking back, but we also look forward. And then what does it mean for us in the present? And all of that done in an environment that says it's okay to play, it's okay to fail, it's okay to experiment, it's okay to not have easy answers, it's okay to rock the boat and ask the difficult questions. In fact, society needs it and demands it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll be poorer off for it.
Yeah.
And all the while, we are developing the soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
More than one sentence, but I hope it got clearer.
No, like
Any commas in between.
I am loving the listener who is following this still true and not fast forwarding
dear.
it. I'm going through training as a spiritual director,
Very nice.
which is also another what's that? I might as well say I'm training to be an artist, right?
Exactly.
So in spiritual direction, they teach you to listen from a spiritual side rather than listen the way we listen, right? And you might be wondering, what's that? What do you mean? And I've tried to describe it to people. And I said that when I'm listening, even as a coach, right, as an executive coach, when I'm coaching someone, I am listening to the point where they suddenly are speaking in a way that is more artistic and creative than they normally are. Like when someone's trying to, let's say, describe the problem and describe like, oh man, this thing's like bugging me, and they're talking in prose at first, in very like normal language. But when you ask the right coaching questions and help them to go deeper, they will suddenly start to use metaphor or imagery. Right? There is an inner artisticness that comes out of them even when they are not being artistic.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's for me as an executive coach the signal that we are finally getting into the soul of the conversation.
Yes.
And then I will support you to connect the dots there.
Yes.
And that's doing deep work,
Yes, so well said. I mean, that, yes, it's getting to the inner truths.
Yeah.
And then we often naturally have the language to express it, but maybe we don't use it a lot in everyday life and in the workplace.
Yeah.
So it's a muscle and a skill that gets dulled and we forget.
Yeah.
But given the right condition, that can then surface.
Yeah.
And a lot of the arts is also about creating those conditions and then giving that language, right? Which again, coming back to normality and the everydayness of it, we all have.
Yes.
It's just that sometimes we forget.
Yeah.
But sometimes, fair enough, we do need to learn those languages. So, but then everyone can do it. You don't have to go to art school, let's just put it that way, to practice at an everyday level.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. Say you hear a colleague say like, I'm getting really upset that all of you keep like leaving the team. It's like as if I'm the only one doing this, right? And say you decide, let me engage this colleague and talk to them a little bit deeper. Like, like when you say upset, like how upset you, what do you mean? And say your colleague suddenly dips somewhere into them and comes out with this amazing metaphor, right? And like, I'm so angry because it feels like you're all like rats deserting a sinking ship. They weren't thinking, it just came out of them, this beautiful metaphor, right? And good coaches know when you find a metaphor, you mine the thing, You really help them go deep, almost like doing literary criticism, right? But not criticizing, but helping the person to now make sense or to explore the form that they just put out there. So for a coach, it might sound like, oh, now that you've heard yourself say that you think of the team as a bunch of rats deserting a sinking ship, like what's standing out to you in that picture? Do you really see your colleagues as rats? What is it that made you dig up like the rat picture? And to not treat it as stupid. And why did you say that? How can you say that about people? They are not rats, they are people, But instead engaging with the artistic form that just popped out and helping them to examine where did that come from? And that is you doing art. And treating the other person as an artist, even if that's not exactly the way you would describe it. But I'm hoping that that's helping someone make sense of, maybe I'm grasping a little bit of this art thing.
So if I extrapolate from that, I mean, that's what, for example, watching a play is about. I mean, watching a play is watching stories unfold on stage, and within a play it contains many metaphors on symbols and right. And then, we could have a conversation after the play about those stories. And sometimes what the arts does also is it creates that safety layer, because maybe the play is about something really difficult, like
Yes.
sexual abuse, or, and it's not your story per se that's being shared, because, it's a very vulnerable state to be in, but you're watching about stories that are familiar, but they're not really about you. But then after that, they give you a language, an opportunity, or characters, or a metaphor that you can then unpack in a post-show dialogue or in your own social circle, or, that you're talking about something else, but it resonates with you, right? And that's the power of metaphors and symbols and all of that. And of course, then if you feel safe enough, you bring in your personal story into it. So like in the coaching situation, I mean, that metaphor came from that person. In the arts, it might come from someone else, but then you are hooking onto that, and then you're unpacking that and making sense of it for yourself.
Yeah.
And in a community setting, when we do Both Sides Now, which is the project on end-of-life conversations, and we bring plays about characters facing end of life or terminal disease and all these decisions that the family has to make. I mean, literally, the audiences are watching and they know it's not them on stage, but the stories are awfully familiar. And then after that, we have the post-show conversations, and then they feel safe enough, and they start sharing, yeah, I'm in a similar situation, or this happened to my, so and so, this is what I did. I would love to adopt that strategy. I want to try it out in my life. So that is the power of the metaphor, the symbol, the story, and then making sense of it for myself. I'm
going to bring us back to this whole, why do so many of us see the arts or art as an intervention, art as a practice, as non-essential, right? Or irrelevant or impractical.
Yeah.
It's not just a problem in Singapore, but I think broadly speaking, in many modern city-based societies, like that is a very common struggle, right?
Yeah.
The struggling artist is like a famous metaphor.
Yes.
Right? A famous analogy. I think I'm very struck by that phrase non-essential, because I think that the arts, like counseling and even psychology and even spirituality, it's hard for people to grasp how essential it is, because it is dealing with this murky world of it's invisible, it's not very seeable, it's not very I can grasp it, right? And yet there is a depth that all these practices are trying to get at. It's trying to remind us that there are deeper things under the surface that should be explored, should be talked about. It reminds me of this saying that the worker must have bread, but she must have roses too, and I think that sums up that tension of, hey, we want to meet our practical needs. I don't have time to think about all of this deep stuff. I don't have time to explore the poetry of my soul, whatever, right? And, it does question, do we deserve roses, as a symbol of all that is frivolous, or shall we just have bread and bread alone? If you had to make a case for what is the value of the arts or an artistic approach to things, what would be your pitch, to someone who's extremely practical, extremely bean counting?
So, I mean, certainly we all deserve roses, and we deserve to smell and inhale deeply. It doesn't mean we have to go to a special place to do it, but I mean the idea that, of course, we all deserve more than just to make a living, but to really live and to thrive.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes it's a socioeconomic thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, certain art forms, in terms of access, you need to pay. It's a bit more exclusive. You need to go to a particular kind of venue. Sometimes the venue looks intimidating, or people look a particular way when they go there, right? But there are other forms of art that takes place in the everyday. There are a lot of programs that happens in community spaces now. So there are artists doing work, be it at active aging centers or even your community center. We can learn art actually at CCs also. So there is a whole spectrum of access for the arts now.
Yeah.
You have to make time, I guess. Time and space to allow ourselves to engage in these activities.
Yeah.
And actually, the the beauty, if I can say that, of COVID or during pandemic times was this access became even wider because then the digital kind of space opened up. And yes, you do need some kind of device in order to do that. So yes, maybe not everyone had access, but more people did. And literally you could then access the arts all the way from performances to workshops, some paid, some free, and all that kind of things. I mean, making a case, definitely everyone deserves that experience of engaging with the arts, be it active or passive. I do think we need to make time and space to do that, to connect and reconnect with ourselves. To be fair, some people turn to religion for that.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at religious practices and the arts, they were, you can't separate them from the earliest of civilizations. I mean, that's where the arts emerged from, right? Making sense of the world, our, cave markings, our music that we make as communities and all of that. So to say that, I mean, for some of us, we go for religious practices to feed that part of our souls and all that. And I want to acknowledge that, right? So again, I am demystifying what the arts is.
Yes.
But I would say that for us practicing in the arts, I mean, we do this in a very intentional way. And it's not just for the practitioner, we're doing this for others. So that's our role in society, to remind others about the importance of reconnecting with ourselves, of expressing what's important to us, of working together to create alternatives, be it narratives or really, if you want to use the word solutions. We can come up with programs and we can co-create and then implement and then bring about a certain change in society that we want to see. But that is our role. Actually, I would say it is to that truthfulness of existence. And that's why we need the arts, because without the arts in society, I would say we'll be soulless. Actually, a really soulless society. I think we would forget to look at alternative narratives. We would be safe in our silos, in our own narratives. If you take away artists in society, then we will lose touch with who we are, the ability to listen to other stories or other narratives, to widen our perspectives, to create, to express things that are important to us, these forms that we can use to express. We may lose them over time. The arts are the tools of culture. So culture is our actions, our behaviors, our identities. How do we exist and relate to one another in different types of communities in all our diversity? And again, the arts as those forms that enable us to express culture, who we are and what's important to us. And without those tools and forms of expression, how then does culture, get made or evolve or... and I think we would lose touch with our senses. I don't know what kind of humans we would be. And all the other, aspects of the arts that enable us to heal. I'm thinking of the therapeutic arts here, those sorts of the personal development side of the house. So those forms of arts practice, you take that away, then I think the counselling profession and all of that will be poorer off for it as well. So hope I'm convincing, because it's not just one thing to make a case for, because the arts permeates every aspect of society, I would say. And then, because we collaborate in the social services and healthcare and all of that. And that's really like artists and social workers collaborating on programs or bringing arts to the hospital, using arts to train healthcare practitioners. So we do workshops on training care practitioners, be it health, community, social care, on how to have end-of-life conversations. So this is beyond your checklist and your medical approach, very technical. But how do you really get to people's emotions and their stories? How can they see the importance of doing advanced care planning through narratives, right? How would it make a difference for their own life and how they want it to turn out, getting in touch with their values and their wishes and their relationships, right? So how do we have these end-of-life conversations in a way that's more humanized? And in recent workshops that we did with healthcare staff, I mean, they were also grappling with very existential and emotional issues, where as doctors, nurses, or allied health practitioners, they look at death every day, right? They look at pain every day and suffering. It has a toll on them. Some of them are traumatized. So in a way, the arts comes in also as part of their healing process when they undergo this workshop. It gives them a space for them to make sense of what they have been experiencing in their workplace, making sense of that, and then how they want to practice with patients that they see or community members. And then they learn skills on how to communicate using stories, in the world of emotions and all of that. So there's so many ways the arts intersects all these different sectors.
Yeah.
And practice is richer for it. Yeah.
Gosh, it feels like there's two themes that I want to touch on from everything you've shared. I think the first is, I remember a side conversation I had with you at an event that you ran, and I asked you, why is it that designers seem to be making so much more money than artists when you're kind of playing in the same sector in a way, but it feels like two different trajectories of being understood by a larger society and also being valued monetarily.
Yeah.
And you said this like beautiful little phrase like, oh, designers provide solutions and artists ask questions, right? And it makes me think that, I think we as a society are biased towards, we just want an answer. We want a quick answer preferably. And I guess it's hard to admit there are situations where there aren't any quick answers. Like if I'm a doctor committed to end-of-life care, and that's because I believe in it, I want to do in it, and I'm also getting traumatized from doing this for like 5-10 years, is there a quick answer to the experience I'm having? And actually there might not be a quick answer.
Yeah.
Right? But there are many questions.
Yes.
And there are many things that you can make sense of. There's many things that you should express about the experience. But in a way, there isn't an answer for, let's say, the path that you have chosen for yourself. And so I can see that relevance down there. And if I could, I would wave a magic wand to normalize like artistic thinking as equally important and valued as design thinking, But what that looks like, I don't know, but I think it's a thing. Like it ought to be a thing, like when like everyone, in the civil service is suddenly like, ooh, can we have a design thinking half-day workshop? The design industry has succeeded in like normalizing it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious about what artistic thinking would look like. And I would hope whoever out there is listening, and it might be Su-Lin that's listening, like how do you really like pin that down? Like artistic thinking is about asking hard questions. It's about helping people to go deep. It's about helping people to make sense of themselves, make sense of the world around them, and then to express it out in a form that is easily seen and heard and understood. And that is part and parcel of artistic thinking. And maybe the distinction between art and design is in the depth, is in the willingness to engage in pretty tough, no answer, no solution spaces, right? So that's one. That's me on my soapbox about that.
And I was being a bit cheeky that day also, Sharon, but I was generalizing a bit. I mean, not to say designers don't ask difficult questions. Of course they do. But I think there's often the need to then locate the solution. And maybe that's what their role is. It is to design solutions or you know.
Yeah.
And artists have the privilege and the training to be able to stay in that place of, I don't necessarily need a solution immediately.
Yeah.
In fact, I just want to keep asking questions and probing and all of that. And that's important too, because often, there are many bad solutions that exist as well, right? But the beauty when these two disciplines come together and collaborate well, I think really wonderful things can happen. Yeah. And to also acknowledge that solutions exist within all of us. So sometimes, the artist raises the questions, but really it is the community coming out with the solutions. And so also not every situation demands a designer also, I guess, but there is value and it's in recognizing when these collaborations need to occur. Yeah.
I think I wanted to land on maybe a very like strange note, but I think it will make sense somehow. At that same event that I went to, I was very struck that ArtsWok was asking the community to like think about a different way of doing KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And because it's key performance indicators are a way of valuing your work,
Yeah.
right? And the artistic community was like going through like a questioning, like actually how do we value our work? How do we help other people see the value of our work? And one of the ways that you were proposing was to put values at the center of it, the values of the
Yes.
practitioner,
Yes.
right? And I don't know if you remember the sentence structure that you made us all go through, but it was something like, because I value blah blah as a
Yeah.
practitioner, this is how I choose to practice.
Yes.
Right? This is how I choose to make certain forms.
Yes.
Right? And I thought it was such a rich way of looking at KPIs, right?
Yeah.
Like say I am say I'm a banker. If I use that arts-based framework for a banker to evaluate their work, it'll be like, okay, I'm a banker. I value diversity. Let's just say I value diversity. I practice banking using this value of diversity in this way. And then you
Yes.
actually have to describe how is it that you do your banking practice
Yes.
in a way that perpetuates the value called diversity.
Yes.
Or equality or whatever's your chosen value. And it was a very, I think it was a very deep, useful, and sort of like bringing you back to the essence of what is your work about.
Yes.
You know, and I thought how different the world would look if all of us really questioned what is the work that we are putting out there, what is our practice, and considering how our values show up or don't show up in our practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very, it was an interesting session for us too. It was the first time we were bringing out that framework and then, listening to, or, looking at practitioners engage with it and then applying it and then, discussing whether it's effective or not. But you're right in that we often forget to reflect on our values. I mean, actually, self-reflection also is quite difficult in this busy city and making a living city. I mean, how much time do we actually take to self-reflect on a daily basis? And sometimes it is a luxury. But if we do reflect, then yes, what are our values?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I would say it is a privilege and a luxury to be in a job, an occupation where we are able to bring the values that we hold dear to that work. Not all of us are able to do that.
Yeah.
And when that sweet spot happens, it's wonderful because then the whole person shows up and we're engaged in meaningful, purposeful work, and it's highly, highly rewarding. But then, what do we do when the gaps show up? Then, certain hard decisions we might have to make. Do we stay in the job or not? And part of that exercise was reconnecting with our personal values. And then the other layers were, especially for those of us working with communities, how does that align or not align with the community's values?
Yes.
So are we imposing our values on community? Are we listening to what the community's values are? And then when we do work like this, it's not just practitioners in the communities, it's the whole ecosystem of stakeholders, your funders, your community organizations that you work with and their values. So there's all this sort of aligning to do, and then being very conscious when there's misalignment, then what does it mean? What kinds of decisions do we want to make?
Yeah.
And the most powerful work happens when there's truly alignment at all the levels. Yeah.
I'm going to bring this conversation to a close. I think we can both rabbit hole for a long time on this.
Am I allowed a 2-minute soapbox before we close?
Sure.
Okay, we're all looking at Azrin now, like, permission, please. I mean, I just wanted to say a bit more about, make a case for artists in the sense of coming back to the sustainability of practice.
Yeah.
We didn't really get to talk about that, and there are not that many platforms for artists to really advocate.
Yeah.
And I think I talked a lot about what we do and the importance of it. But I think many in Singapore don't realize that artists are not well paid at all. And it's a real struggle to sustain our practice. I mean, probably we hear a bit more from the aspect, or if, someone's kid or child wants to go into art school or do the arts, there's always the, are you sure or not? Can you make money or not? Can you survive, right? And so I guess we do get a sense that it's hard to have a career in the arts, or the financial sustainability of it. But actually the extent of it maybe is not that well understood, where many of us are non-profit organizations. Fundraising is a huge challenge. Often, those in the social services and sort of the more visible needs, right, like disability or poverty, and, they get sort of the funding support. And in the arts and sports really are at the bottom. And in a recent survey done by the National Council of Social Service, actually, the arts is really at the bottom in terms of financial sustainability of the organizations. And many of us are struggling. And the landscape has gotten more competitive in terms of the nonprofit landscape and all of that. So I really want to appeal to corporates, to private funders, to foundations, to support the arts. We really need that support in order to continue practice. Individual donors as well, because many of us, I would say, are not practicing at the level we can and we should be. Some of us are juggling multiple roles or jobs just to be able to afford to do our art, right? So we take on, freelance gigs, become Grab drivers or teach and all that. I mean, there's a huge role and importance in teaching, right? But we're not necessarily making our art or engaging with the communities. And so really want to make a case for more support for the arts. And in order to be able to sustain this work. And I think the other thing that, because, we've heard the argument, but you receive government support and all of that. But honestly, that's maybe just about 30% of our annual budget. And that's still 70% of the budget to be raised, for example. And we also know of many freelancers who are stopping their work in the arts because they just can't continue anymore. So I don't think these narratives get out there as much. And maybe people just see the bright lights, the theatre, the national, museums and the large galleries and think that, the arts are very well funded. But many of us on the ground are struggling from day to day. And that's a real shame and pity. And I just wish there could be a lot more support for us. So thank you for that soapbox.
No worries. Thank you, Su-Lin, for sharing that, because that is how I wanted to close. Yeah, if you had to speak to any artist, funder, and just member of the broader community who does not necessarily understand art, like if you could speak to them directly in this podcast, what is the last 3 parting words you would give them? The artist, the funder, and just a member of the public who may not necessarily understand the arts.
I hope we didn't literally mean 3 parting words, because it's going to be sentences.
There are 3 parting sentences for 3 parting listeners.
Okay. For the artist, I see you. I understand how challenging it can be. I hope you can continue to do what you do, to find spaces and opportunities, but without compromising your own well-being and the need to thrive, right? And I do think that if it becomes quite impossible to do art or make art and live in a way that's meaningful for you, then it's okay to stop as well. But my hope is somehow there will be opportunities, and that's part of what ArtsWok does also as an intermediary, creating the right conditions for artists to thrive and to be able to do their work. So please continue to do what you do if you can. But also document your work and communicate about it, because I do think that's something that there's a lot of misconception about the arts and mystery around it. So how do we become better communicators at unpacking what we do and sharing that? So podcasts like these are truly helpful, because I think we need help to communicate what we do as well. Sometimes we're too in it and using shame language. For the funder, I think, I made my case just now. We really need your support. There is tremendous value in the arts, and it's not just, what you see at venues, but really the processes behind the arts. I hope more funders can understand that, take the time to come and experience the work, journey with us behind the scenes, see what goes on. Please invest in us and longer term, because these processes take time. You may not see immediate results or impact. Journey with us, invest in us, take the years of, getting to know us. And because it's very disruptive when we start something and then the funding runs out. So for example, community development work takes years. You can't get results in 6 months, for example. And you, without knowing you have those monies longer term, you won't think larger, or you won't go as deep. And so the projects stay at a very superficial level. So longer term investment in the arts, journey with us, get to know us, collaborate with us, partner with us.
Yes.
For the general public, please continue to participate, engage, seek out these opportunities and experiences. They're all around. Just a quick plug for the Culture Pass. I mean, Ministry of MCCY is giving all of us $100 to go and experience the arts. Please leverage on that and get to know us, the artists, experience the work. Hey, invite us into your communities. Invite us to work with you on something, a commission us or talk to your local community center or your social service, your community organization. There are a lot of grown-up groups now as well. So many ways to invite the arts and artists into your lives.
Yeah.
So do reach out as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So much that can be said in this conversation. And I echo everything that Su-Lin said. Like, it's good for us to consider what would our work look like if we took on a more artistic or arts-based lens, and to consider that all of the impact is in the process of making sense in ourselves, making sense of the world. The forms that it takes on is just the output. Yeah, but a lot of the impacts in that process making, that's what I'm learning from this conversation. Yeah. So for this season, we are inviting our guests to give a from the gut response to just 3 fill in the blanks. So, Su-Lin, if you want to change something in Singapore, you have to. How would you fill in that blank? If you want to change something in Singapore, you have to
collaborate.
Lovely. And when you look around at how people are trying to change things in Singapore, what is a way that you have seen that you want people to please stop, because it's just causing more brokenness and more fragmentation? And instead, what is the way you would invite them to explore, because it just is such a more wholesome way of doing it?
So less of the top-down rolling out of policies that have not engaged the ground about what truly is happening and how, more importantly, communities want the change to happen and what is their role in making the change happen. So less reliance on professional services, but really tapping on the strengths, the skills, the wisdoms, the knowledge that already exist in communities. And how do we get them on board, working together with organizations and agencies to create change? Because top-down ways of working without truly understanding and engaging the ground results in a lot of disruption and hurt, a lot of unnecessary undoing of good work that has happened.
Last, quick fire question is very simple. What is a community or a thing that you feel pretty grateful for?
I'm really grateful for the both sides now, volunteers. So we have engaged about 500 volunteers over the 12 years of the project, and they come from all walks of life, all ages. And these are everyday people in Singapore who want to talk about the importance of having end-of-life conversations, of being that listening ear, that comforting presence, holding that space for others to make sense of what are their end-of-life wishes. And I really salute their courage, because this is a emotional space as well, not just a cerebral space. And many of them, because they've gone through aspects of caregiving or losing someone, or they just want to be there for someone else. And that's always inspired me, that we all have that capacity. And I always think that in Singapore, we just don't have enough opportunities to, I'll use the word design spaces and create conditions for us to come together, to be vulnerable, to have honest conversations, to tap deeper, to express and create. And we're also busy making a living, and we're being thrown narratives about our precarity so often. So we're also scared and, just trying to survive. But how do we really thrive? And we need reminders, and we need opportunities to go into those other kinds of spaces. Singapore can definitely afford it. So can we just remind each other more often about this? Can we have the resources to create those conditions and facilitate those processes for more people? And the BSN volunteers really shows me that it's indeed possible. And people in Singapore would more than just participate. They would step up and help create those conditions for others and hold those spaces for others. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Yao. This has been so enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I know we could go on for a lot longer, but we shall not torture the listener.
Well, I will close this with a parting gift to you. I just want to thank you, Su-Lin, for the gift of your vibe. And I know it sounds like weird, but like that was the first thing that struck me when we sat down to do this podcast. I was thinking Su-Lin is a vibe. It's like, and I'm grateful for the vibe of gentleness, curiosity, and soulfulness that you bring to your work. You've stuck it out for many years doing work that is hard to understand, but you understand it. And I will always respect and support and resonate with fellow travelers on a road that no one quite understands. Yeah, but you feel drawn to do. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.